there's a fabulous seminar, 1-hour class on nutrition, and I hope you enjoy it. And I am going to try to get CEs for all of you. I'm checking. I checked the BRN, and I can do objectives to get RN CEs. I'll check for. I'm not sure about social work, the BBS, but
we have a probably.
Okay, and then AIDS. So any aides that are going to come will give them one. Yeah, you get credit for your annual performance review.
Everybody wins. How's that?
Yeah. So all of you have met Dr. Osborne at Super Thursday, so I am just going to turn it over to him.
All right, good morning.
Welcome.
All right, so I am, we were just laughing up here for a second ago because, you know, all these people are kind of running behind, and usually when I give a talk like this, like the one thing that happens is that people are like, oh my gosh, we're going to have this nutrition class. He's going to tell me everything that I can't do. So the night before, they're over at, like, you know, McDonald's, and they have that last bit of pizza that's in the fridge, and so they're trying to eat that bit of pizza that's in the fridge, and they're stuffing themselves on the way in here, and they're like, okay, it's like their last meal. And that's what this isn't about. This is not about, like, your last meal, the final meal here. This is about teaching you how to live a different way, and teaching you how to think a different way. I'm going to, I have so much information. I was telling Carolyn that I started off with 180 slides because I started adding them, and they need to know this, and they need to know this, and they need to know this. But the good news is this: it's not just today. We have other classes that we're going to be doing, so we don't have to almost overwhelm you and have your heads melt today from the information. Okay? So really, we're going to be talking about nutrition today, and really the thing is that a lot of times people think about food as it's like a sport, right? It's like we sport eat, and all of a sudden it becomes like an entertainment. Rather than something that makes us go. And that's really where we need to start to shift our mindset, because I watch my daughter sometimes when she's actually doing her homework, and she'll have a thing of nuts there, and she's constantly eating, and so eating becomes an unconscious thing. And so when eating becomes an unconscious habit, all of a sudden our bodies start to have the effect of it. So when we're conscious about our eating, when we're conscious about the way that we're living, all of a sudden we can determine our outcomes and determine where we want to be. And so I picked a couple books up here. I don't know if you guys have seen any of this. This isn't a diet plan that we're talking about today, because every single week there's a new diet plan that comes up there. They just keep coming and coming and coming, whether it's the World Peace Diet, or the Zone Diet, or the Paleo Diet, or it's your Genes Diet. I mean, I can, the lemon juice diet, how does that one sound? Yeah, so we're not going to be talking about diets here. And the problem is that, all of a sudden we start getting confused. We read one book one day, we read another book the next day, and then all of a sudden somebody debunks something one day, and so then all of a sudden you're like, I just quit, right? I just quit. I'm just not going to even try anymore. I like this one, the soft chocolate hard body diet. I don't think that one even made it to Amazon's bestseller list. The beer diet one. I like that one. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's a college diet right there.
Yes, exactly.
But this is actually when we start mixing diets. This is the beer diet book and the Taco Bell diet. That doesn't work either. So, really the point of this is that, it's, nutrition is it's a lot about the fuel that gets us to move, right? And when we start looking at where we are, so much, because it's become such a sport eating phenomenon, it's something that we grab on the way in the car because it's an inconvenience, and we're always so hungry that we just stop off and we do the quickest thing. And so we eat fast, not just fast food, but we eat fast, and it's become this thing that now what we start to find is it working for us? And the problem is, you guys have heard the stats. I mean, everything there is about obesity, that we can't be almost 2/3 of the people in the United States being overweight. There's nothing good that happens with that. And when we start looking what happens with that, we have, when somebody's dying from a heart attack every 34 seconds. You guys see the trauma of what happens when somebody's sick. It's not just the person that's having a heart attack, it's every single person that's around them. We look at right now, 1,500 people a day are dying from cancer. And one of the things that we look at is that we know that, is it just the same, everywhere else in the world? No, it's not. You look at in the United States right now, we're #1 in the world. We're also #1 in the world in McDonald's too. We're #1 in the world in obesity, but we're also one of the top countries in heart disease. We're one of the top countries in cancers out there. We're one of the top countries and asthma and allergies. We're one of the top countries for being sick in the world. In fact, of all the industrialized nations, we're now ranking number 50th in the world as far as health and well-being of our general population. And the challenge with that is that our average life expectancy is somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 years. Well, our healthy life expectancy is about 67 years. So the last 13 years of the average person in the United States' life is just spent trying to stay alive. And I don't think that that's the plan. I don't think that's the way that it has to be. The problem is that by the time somebody gets sick, they start thinking about like how to get healthy, right? And so if we spend the rest of our lives thinking about how to stay healthy, we don't spend that time trying to get, trying to recover ourselves. I had a lady once that we talked about nutrition. Like, this is the way you eat to not get cancer. And then she was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and she did most of it, but it was just too hard. And then she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she's like, okay, what was that you said that I should do? So for me, I always tell people that let's eat like we have stage 4 cancer, and that way we don't get it in the first place. And so really, I look at this, and this is some of the things. A lot of times we think, well, it's just in my genes, right? And this is a wave picture, and this is actually Fukushima right here. This is a picture of like the wave patterns coming out, how it spreads out to the whole world. And whether it's right now we have about 300 tons of radioactive waste that has a 16 million year half-life being dropped out of Fukushima, and it's going out throughout the rest of the world. And we don't see it, right? We don't see the effects of it, but what we start looking at is the sea lion population. It's 45% decrease in the pups of sea lions. We're starting to see up in the Arctic, right up in here, we're starting to see the hair falling out of polar bears. And they're starting to get these sores that don't heal. And so we start thinking to ourselves, yeah, that's really weird that these polar bears have bad genes, and the genes of the sea lions they got these bad genes. They must have inherited them from their mother. And if I say that, hopefully you guys are thinking that's totally ridiculous, right? It's the same, it's just about as ridiculous as we say that because we have my mother had diabetes, I have to have diabetes. Because my mother had heart disease, I have to have heart disease. Because my mother had cancer, I have to have cancer. Because what that does is it takes our power away. And you guys have to remember that you're powerful beyond measure. The day that you were born, like a sperm and an egg came together, and they started to replicate, and that same power that was with you, it didn't disappear the day that you were born. It's still there. It's just our choices that we make. And so the problem is that nearly all cases of like these, what we call these chronic diseases, are actually lifestyle diseases, right? It's not a glandular problem. It's a salivary gland problem, right? It's the choices that we make. So really, what you get to see mostly on a daily basis, and what you get to deal with on a daily basis almost, is this lifestyle epidemic, and it's like slow suicide by lifestyle, and that's what we're talking about shifting. Because you guys are fully in control of where you're going to end up. So this is when we want to study what works, we need to study who people that it's working for. And there's a book called The Blue Zones, and what they did is they studied people around the world that are regularly living over 100 years old. How cool is that? Like most of us, like think about somebody that's living to 100 years old. Like how many of you want to live to 100 right now? Like the way that you see most people, right? Like most people, like drooling, tubes in every orifice, barely even knowing their name. But when they study these blue zone people, what they find is regularly, like, this group right here, the Villacambrans, they actually regularly at 80 and 90 and 100 years old, they actually have 0 heart disease in their population. They regularly walk between 3 and 10 miles a day, and it's not just flatline with a walker, it's up and down hills. There's 0 hearing issues. They have almost no eye issues. They don't wear glasses. Their eyesight is almost perfect there. When we start looking at people that live in Okinawa, it's the highest concentration of centurions in the entire world. How cool is that? But what they find is they say, oh, well, maybe it's their genes. Maybe they have the Japanese genes in there. But when those Okinawans move to the United States and take on the United States lifestyle, all of a sudden, they start having the same mortality rates as people in the United States. And so that's what this book is about right here. And this is a nutrition plan book, and it's not a diet book, okay? It's a lifestyle book. It's a plan for you to be able to make this right here a blue zone, okay? So this in here, there's so much information. We'll be going over it, but there's chapters 3 and 4 is really going to be the kind of the Kickstarter chapter for you. And I'm not going to read from the book if that's okay with you. I only do that to my daughter. So, I mean, we can sit down, we can have a nice fireside chat, but there's a plan that's in this book, and reading chapter 3 and 4 is the Kickstarter plan. But a lot of times we talk about, you know, the what and how to do something, but we forget about the why, right? And this is about the why, because if the why is big enough, the what and how take care of themselves. So the what and the how is in chapters 3 and 4, but the why is in chapter 2 and 1. So if you really want to be successful, I would just suggest that you read the whole book, okay? And this is what happens. So you look at Mary. Here's Mary. She's 167 pounds. Here's Mary 6 months later. She's lost, you know, almost 60, a little over 60 pounds there. But it wasn't because she was on a diet. And in fact, she was eating a lot of saturated fat. She was eating a ton of food. She did not starve. She just gave her body what it needed. And one of the side effects of eating right is you actually get healthy. And one of the side effects of getting healthy is actually losing weight. Mike was a big guy. He thought it was in his genes. He was just big boned, right? His mama was big boned. His daddy was big. I remember him telling me this. He's like, I like my chicken. I like it. It was just like he's from the South. Like it was just like ingrained in him. Every single person that he'd ever met was completely obese. Here he is 3.5 months later, and it's a totally different person. He has the same genes. He just has a different lifestyle. And Harvey was one of my favorite guys because when I first met him, the first thing that I thought, he looks like Santa. And so he sent me this picture. This is Harvey, 375 pounds, and this is Harvey before the next Christmas, 100 pounds later. And Harvey, he had every excuse. His knees were bad, right? Couldn't exercise. He was on 13 different medications for his heart and all the health problems there. You know, just basically it's too late for me. And it's not. It's too late. The moment that you stop breathing is the moment it's too late. As long as you're breathing, then we can still make changes there. And so this is what I want for you, and I want for every single person that you know, and that's why I take this time to be here. Like, it's not, I'm not getting paid here. I just have a message to make sure that you guys understand this information so that I can leave an impact in the world. So we're coming down to the big thing we're talking about eating. A lot of times we get this calorie controversy, right? Like, how many people know that it's 3,500 calories is equal to 1 pound of fat, right? I mean, that's what you look in the textbooks. But there's a difference, because 153 calories of an almond is different than a 150 calorie Twinkie, right? Our bodies are going to burn the almonds because that's what they're designed to do. If you've seen that Twinkie experiment on YouTube where they take a blowtorch to a Twinkie, like our bodies can't, it doesn't even burn. Our bodies can't even burn a Twinkie. Like, it doesn't know how to recognize it. So there's a difference between what we call foods by man. Like, pretty much anything that man touches as a food, we've kind of messed up, right? So like, if it doesn't come from the earth, it doesn't come from the heavens, then I probably wouldn't touch it, right? And so like I use the example, like if you take like an apple and you take a Twinkie, and you take that apple and in there is every single nutrient. They have this nutrient synergy. It all comes together. And you take that apple and you bury it in the ground. What do you get in 5 years? And how long is it going to keep giving you apples? Forever, right? Like, so it keeps giving you life. Like, good living food gives life. You take that Twinkie and you bury it in the ground. What do you have in 20 years? The Twinkie, right? And it's still there. So really, that's what we look at when we're starting to look at our food choices. Even though the Twinkie tastes oh so good, it's just going to put us in the ground, right? It's going to preserve us. And in fact, there was really an interesting, like I read this report where they're talking about people that were, like, when they were dying, they were finding that their bodies were actually preserved better because of all the preservatives that they're exposed to. Like, when they were having to exhume them, they're actually preserved better than the people in the past. Like, the rate at which their bodies would decay is significantly slower than it was in the past because of all the preservatives we've been exposed to. So think about that. All right, so here's the big thing. So to make any changes, right, and the reason why I go through this stuff, because I could go through all the actions, but to make any changes in anything, I have to change your beliefs first, right? Like, I have to change, like, how you think. I have to have you change the idea that you are in charge of your health and that you are in charge of being able to make it have an impact in your own life. Because if I don't have you start thinking that way, then I'm not going to change your actions, right? You're just going to keep on doing the same things that you've always done. And so really, just to know that there are foods by man, foods by God. Like there's foods that make us stronger, there's foods that make us weaker. There's foods that build us up, and there's foods that break us down. There's foods that gives us the energy to go out and run and exercise and be smart and have our brain to be clear. And then there's also foods that gives us that brain cloud, just that heavy feeling on our shoulders. And so it's really a choice that you have. And so what I want to be able to do is give you a choice. And the first action that we do whenever we're talking about nutrition is teaching you how to shop. Okay? This is a huge one because guess what happens? Like, I don't know if does anybody here make a shopping list? Okay, we have a pretty good shopping list, and but for the most part, don't you kind of know what you need anyways, right? Like it's kind of the same thing you bought last week. It's the same product, the same brand, the same toilet paper. I need my same 6 bananas. I need my same, I always get this kind of soup when I need soup and run out of soup. So if we can start to shift the way that you shop and make some slight changes there, we're going to make a lateral shift, and that's why we're going to teach you some things to look for. So really, the biggest thing that you need to do is take some time to look at like where you are in the store, like to take the time in the store. A lot of times it's looking like it's the end of days when people go into the supermarket, they're just pouring stuff in the shopping cart there. Schedule your shopping, don't leave it to chance, because that's one of the worst things that happens. Because if you ever notice, like you're like it's Sunday evening and you have nothing in the house. And then next thing you know, you're just eating whatever's in the house, or then you're going out to dinner, and then the week starts, and then next thing you know, the whole week you're going out every single meal that you have there. So schedule your shopping, come prepared, have a list and use it. This is the biggest thing that you can do. If I can teach you one thing, it's label reading, okay? And it drives my wife crazy when I go shopping with her, because I'm the biggest label reader in the entire world. It takes like 5 times longer for us to go shopping, because I stop, I read, I look at everything. But once you take that time, and initially when you go shopping, you're going to have to take that time. When you take that time, then you'll start to know what's good and what's not good there. So really, the first thing that we want to look at when we go into the shopping center is the way that the store is outlined, okay? So like in the outside is where all the healthy things are, and then in the middle we go a little biblical here, like, yeah, walk through the valley of death, right? It's like that whole, the middle section is where all the toxic foods are. So if you want to survive, stay out of the valley of death. And I'm trying to give you like some leverage on yourself. Like I want you to walk in the store and you're like, oh, there's the valley of death that he was talking about. So stay on the outsides, because that's where all the healthy foods are. They like the people to go up and down the aisles, right? That's where the cans are there. Looking for natural ingredients. So for me, the big thing is if you can't pronounce it, like you look at the back of a label and you're like, oh, do you know what that says? Then probably it's not something you want to put into your body. Like if you can't pronounce it, maybe it's like, but also look for natural ingredients. One of the things that the problems is just because it says natural doesn't mean it's natural, okay? And you have to be aware there's a tremendous amount of marketing, because they're trying to get you to do what? Buy their stuff. Yeah, buy their product. That's their job. They spend millions of dollars to get you to buy their stuff, and the only way that they're going to get you to buy your stuff is by separating themselves from everybody else. So you notice everything's natural. Now everything has like from pure or something. So looking for natural ingredients. We'll go over that in a second. Try to buy more foods without any labels at all. So like you can't go wrong if the food doesn't have a label. I mean, there's no labels on a banana, right? Like, so it's probably a good thing for you there. So if you were to go through the store and try to shop without buying stuff without a label, you'd probably be in a much easier place, and you really wouldn't even have to think about it. Check every label on every single thing you buy. Once, get in the habit of looking at every single label at first. Then once you find the products that you like, then you can go autopilot there. But it has to be a conscious experience at first. And then put the items back. If it's man-made, just put the items back on the shelf. Even though you like it, we don't have to deny ourselves. We just have to look for a different product. And so in that book, there's a lot of great resources there. I'll give you my email address. You can email me if you have any questions. And I actually put that the nutrition the nutrition questionnaire there. If you have any questions on those things, I'm your resource. Just email me. I can set up a time to talk about it. I can answer any questions. So here's a test question here. So let's say we're walking through the store, okay, and we stop. Oh, I need some peanut butter. So we look at this peanut butter, and yeah, so first of all, it's organic, right? Probably a good thing, like when something's organic, like if you have a choice between something that's organic and non-organic, probably a better thing to do to choose the organic there, because one of the problems is what we call bioaccumulation. The more things that we eat that aren't, like that have pesticides and toxins in them, it accumulates in us. And then we just become a toxic cesspool. So the more organic that we eat, the better. And I'll show you what things you have to buy organic and what things you don't have to buy organic. So you look at this, and it's really simple. It's made from peanuts. That would be a great kind of peanut butter, is one that's just made from peanuts there. And you look at the back, and all it is organic, roasted, unbleached, unblanched peanuts. And that's all that's in there. That's a pretty good example of a peanut butter to buy there. So when you're looking at, like, a lot of times people get so hung up on the carbs, and they get hung up on the sugars, and they get hung up on all the little ingredients that have enough riboflavin in it, right? Like, how would you know? The point is this, is that, what we can look at is, if you don't get hung up on that, just your body can process things, and it knows what to do if the foods are good foods, if they're whole foods. So, don't get so caught up on the proteins and the carbs and the sugars as to what the ingredients on there, because your body can actually do more with it. Beware of questionable marketing. So the big thing is that when it's organic, really find out what's organic. They might say like a part of it's organic, and so you're going to have to read the labels on that. All natural is not what it seems, and we'll go over this in a second. I have some examples of all natural, what all natural means. Don't buy items with any of the following ingredients, and this is huge, okay? So MSG, like monosodium glutamate, really a lot of times, like, we don't see MSG on labels anymore, right? Like, you don't see it. Like, nobody ever advertises, hey, this has MSG in it, right? Like, they have to hide it, because we know that it affects how our brains think and how our brains function. So anything that has pretty much hydrolyzed anything in it is an MSG type product. So that's when you see hydrolyzed, like, just put a check mark on the list of things that I'm probably not going to buy, because it's a neurotoxin. It affects how your brain functions there. Have you ever gone out to like Chinese food at a restaurant, and all of a sudden you just feel funny afterwards? That's MSG, right? The problem is if you start looking at some of the labels, it's in all the foods that we have, and you're like, wow, no wonder I feel funny all the time and I don't feel normal there. Artificial sweeteners, some of them, like, were used as rat poisons at first, and then we know they're known neurotoxins. Like, there's nothing good that comes out of anything artificial, especially an artificial sweetener there. Hydrogenated. And this is a big thing. Like, you guys have probably heard of trans fats. Like, they're trying to ban trans fats in some cities. One of the problems with a trans fat is this, and a trans fat, your cells are made up of fat. The outside lining of your cells are made up of fat. So for your cells to get nutrients in and to get rid of the toxins, they have to have this nice nice little barrier there to be able to transfuse these nutrients and get rid of toxins. The problem with this trans fat is it makes the cells like concrete, right? It makes the cells like concrete. So, and it stays like that. The half-life of a trans fat on your cell is 51 days. So you go out to In-N-Out and you get a big thing of fries, and you're like, oh, just this one time I'm going to have fries. And so you're eating there, and you're eating all these fries, and it has the trans fats in there. Well, what ends up happening is that those trans fats, they'll stay for a minimum of 51 days on your cells, affecting your health, affecting your body's ability to get rid of toxins. And so every choice that we make has an outcome, it has a consequence there. So a trans fat really is made up of oils, right? Like it's a type of oil, and it's any oil that's a rancid oil. So a rancid oil would be something like, vegetable oil. Like maybe at one time it was a vegetable, but to get it from corn to be in a bottle on your counter, it had to be processed to a degree that it becomes unrecognizable by your body. Canola oil, it's from the rapeseed plant. Do you remember there was the guy that sent the letter to Obama with the toxin recently? And like they said it was like one of the biggest toxins that was out there. He was from like Tennessee or something like that. And they were looking for him. Well, it came from the rapeseed plant. And rapeseed is, like you can't eat it. But canola oil stands for Canadian low-grade oil. It became an industrial. It was designed to be an industrial lubricant. Now it's marketed as this great healing oil for you. So yes, it's an industrial lubricant, but your body doesn't know how to digest it there. So in the book, there's a tremendous amount of information on oils, and my job is not to scare you, but to make you aware so that you can make better decisions throughout the rest of your life there. So hydrogenated oils, cottonseed oil, any vegetable oils, seed oils, anything that, cotton's supposed to be a textile, it's not supposed to be a food that you eat, right? Refined flours, literally by the time it turns white, like any white powders that we eat are probably not good for us. Any white powder is not good for us, right? But by the time it becomes a white powder, they have literally taken absolutely everything out of that powder, out of that flour, just so you have this pure refined flour, and then they actually have to supplement it, right? It's like fortified. Like that's why you see the white bread. This is fortified white bread because we've actually ripped all the nutritional value out. We're like, oh my gosh, I messed up on that. Let's put some synthetic vitamins back in there just to make it actually functional. Last things, additives, colorings, preservatives. Like all those things will stay in our body. They have an effect, the red dyes and the blue dyes there. So here's your test. So when we start looking at Skippy, right? Our kids love Skippy because it's a little bit easier to spread, right? Like it's not one of those really hard ones where it kind of chunks onto the bread. This one just goes nice and smooth over the bread. So let's look and see what's in there. We got peanuts, right? So the next thing that we have is soybean oil, what kind of fat is that? It's a trans fat. And just so you know, they used to have, with the new law says that you have to let people know if your food has a trans fat in it, right? The problem is what they did is they changed the serving size. So now if you look at a bag of potato chips, they'll say no trans fats on there, but it has to be under like 500 milligrams of trans fat. So now they base it on serving size. So now if you eat 2 chips, it's below the level of having a trans fat. When was the last time you had like 2 chips out of a bag of chips, right? You look at those small little lunch bags, there's like 8 servings in a bag of that size. That's how they kind of play with the law there. So we got soybean oil. Now we got maltodextrin. So pretty much anything that has dextrin in it or ose behind it is going to be a sugar. So now we have a trans fat, we have a sugar, and now they're just calling it what it is, right? They also have icing sugar in there, and we have hydrogenated vegetable oil and some salt for taste. So think about what we're feeding our kids. We're blocking up their cells to be able to get toxic nutrition in and toxins out for the next 51 days, and we're sending them to school with a PB&J every single day, where we can have a choice. And this is what we're talking about. I'm not saying don't eat peanut butter. I'm just saying you have a choice of what you're going to put into your body there. Or we look at, we want to be healthy. This is a great example. It's like Morningstar sausages. It's the healthy alternative. And all of a sudden we're looking, we have the soy proteins there, and we have our egg whites. Now we have corn oil, 2%, then we have some salt. We have the isolates are basically destroyed proteins there. So when you see a isolate there, we have sugar, cellulose, modified potato starch, which turns into a sugar. We have canola oil, which is a rancid oil. We have autolyzed yeast extract, which is basically a sugar. We have hydrolyzed vegetable protein, which hydrolyzed, remember, is basically destroyed there. So you start looking down the list of something like this. By the time you get to the 3rd row, you're probably going to say, oh, I don't really want to start my day off like this because it's not from a position of power. Or this one, I don't know about you, when I was a kid, I would eat these things. Because I was a wrestler in high school and college. I think I want to stay strong and healthy, so I'm going to eat Nutri-Grain bars, right? I don't even know how they got the gold medal on there for best taste. But so we start looking at this thing, and we're like, this is a Nutri-Grain bar. We're going to try to give this thing to our kids, and we're going to try to stay healthy. And I can't figure out why I can't lose weight. Well, let's look. So the first ingredient, we got filling, which is the high fructose corn syrup, which is we take sugar and we make it as bad as it possibly can be, and then we call it high fructose corn syrup there. We got corn syrup, but now they're just calling it what it is. High fructose corn syrup. We have fructose, which is a type of sugar. We have sugar, which is sugar. We have maltodextrin. And now we start coming down here, modified cornstarch, which is a sugar. And then there's xanthine gum, which is a type of sugar. And we have all these different colors. There's 26 different types of sugar in this Nutri-Grain bar there. So, and we can't figure out why we're having diabetes. I eat healthy. There's a difference than what the box says is healthy as to really what is healthy. And so you guys have the power to be able to read the labels, and all it does is take you till you get to line number 4 right here to be able to put it back on the shelf and say maybe there's something else out there. Hopefully. Salt, by the way, it's in everything. You always got to read the ingredients. I love this one. There's sugar in your salt, because salt doesn't taste good enough without the sugar in it. So really, here's some of the quick tips and ideas. Just keep your basic stock. Like always, just have your staples all ready to go. And that's a big thing. A lot of times, when we're in a reactive mode, then we make bad decisions. When we're in a proactive mode, we make really good decisions. And you can save so much money cooking at home. And so what we do is that, if I had to cook every meal, or if my wife had to cook every meal, we go crazy, right? But what she'll do is we'll make like a big pot of chili, and I might have that 2 or 3 days spread out there. Or we might make a big salad at the beginning of the week and have like these huge salads during the week there, so we don't have to stress out, cutting everything up. Some of the things you can do is get pre-chopped or pre-cut things if you don't want to do that. But just think about it, and it's about a system in place. Like we're all trying to survive, but if we can have a system in place, it'll make things a lot easier. The best is always going to be fresh, right? If it's recently alive, it's probably going to be better for you, and you'll be more alive. The next best is frozen, least desirable is canned. That's why we're not. None of you walk around now. Everybody has their water bottles that are glass water bottles, because we don't want to get the BPA's from the water bottles. What they're finding on the inside of the can is just as much BPA as in those water bottles, and the stuff goes in hot. And so now they're finding there's a higher concentration of BPA in the canned foods than there actually is even in the water bottles that we drink there. This is when we talk about, if I could make a suggestion, a couple of things. Sorry, this is low, but really, looking at a couple of the most important changes are to focus on our animal products, because when you start thinking about an animal product, it's the bioaccumulation. Like we can eat like a head of lettuce, right? They get sprayed, and that's one head of lettuce. But you think of what a cow has to eat to be able to make a pound of meat. Like they have to eat a tremendous amount of sprayed vegetables out there, and they'd have to eat thousands of heads of lettuce to be, and those toxins don't ever leave. So one of the things that we want to start looking at is our type of our meat. The best investment that you can make as a quick lateral shift is any meat that's organic. Second thing, and we'll talk about this in a second, is that we want to make sure that it's grass-fed there. So here's our top 10 toxic foods. I feel like David Letterman, right? Our top 10 toxic foods for the day. Number 1 is going to be salad dressing. And this is the biggest thing. A lot of times we're trying to be healthy, and we're like, I'm just going to have a salad every day. And we just go out there, we look, oh, this one says healthy, natural, canola oil, salad dressing there, and we just pour it on there. The problem is that most of these commercial salad dressings are made up with bad fats, right? They're made up with bad fats that your body can't utilize in the right way. They have a tremendous amount of sugar in them. They have all kinds of additives. They're trying to get you hooked on salad dressing. Like, man, I can't go a day without my salad dressing. And a lot of times it's the fat-free farce. And this is a whole nother class, but Sweden actually last week became the first country in the entire planet to get off the fat-free bandwagon. They actually just made it their country's policy to incorporate more saturated fats into people's diets. Because if you look at where we've been over the last 40 years, like we've tried to get away from fats, and we've tried to go low-fat everything, and now we have the fatter people than ever, right? Like we're heavier because we have low fat. Like it's the wrong types of fats. And so this fat-free farce is basically when you take away fat, your body needs fats to be able to make your brain. Like 80% of your brain is actually made up of fat and cholesterol there. So we have low cholesterol, everything. Our brain needs cholesterol to actually be able to function. Our nervous system's made up of fat. Like our hormones in our body, how many women have hormonal issues, and we don't, because our bodies need fat to be able to make our hormones. Like when we give our bodies what they need, then we don't have any issues there. So this is a big one. So this, I pulled up Wishbone here. Here it is. First thing we have water, soybean, and canola oil. That's a check bad, check bad. We have some distilled vinegar. By the way, we have our sugar. We have our dehydrated garlic, which is great for taste. But then we have some like food concentrate, so in caramel color. So the best thing that I do is like vinegar. You can do it like a balsamic vinegar. There's a ton of that's what I think the internet was made for us to be able to stay healthy. Okay, so just Google healthy salad dressing recipes. You'll find some of them out there, and just make your own. You'll save a tremendous amount of money, but you'll also like avoid one of the top 10 toxic foods there. I don't need to say anything about this, okay? Especially if you have kids after Halloween. That would be probably the most obvious thing, right? But here's one of the things, is sugar is, just because something is sugar-free doesn't mean that it's healthy. So when you see a sugar-free candy bar, it doesn't mean you can eat as many as you want of them. It just means that they had to replace that sugar-free with something equally as bad, right, for you to be able to eat it. The other thing, we're actually having a whole class, and I have some flyers for it, but it's coming up on the 18th. It's called Bittersweet. It's basically how to stay healthy for the holidays. And one of the problems with sugar is that when you eat sugar, for the next 8 hours, your immune system is actually suppressed. So every time you eat sugar, boom, you're suppressing your immune system. So what do? We start right now, and this whole class, we think about the holidays as just being like New Year's, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. But the problem is that the holidays aren't like New Year's, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. They start in October, and pretty much those whole 2 months are holidays. We're on our vacation meal plan, right? Like all the rules of how we eat and live get thrown out the window, and then all of a sudden you throw in like what we do in the summer, all the holidays. Approximately, and I did the math on this, approximately 25% of our life is spent in the holiday mode. And so all of a sudden, if I'm 40 years old, which I wish I was, like that would mean that 10 years of my life was spent thinking that I was on holiday and eating like I was on holiday. So that's why we're doing this class, to make sure people are healthy for the holiday. But really, all the candies, there's really nothing good about them. And I look at basically you have to think of, when you look on a label and you'll see sugars on there. So for every gram, like 5 grams of sugar, think of it's a tablespoon of sugar, okay? So like if you see 30 grams of sugar, that's 7 tablespoons of sugar that you're eating, teaspoons of sugar that you're actually eating in your mouth there, okay? Then you can also take the carbohydrates and divide it by sugars, and that's a bigger indicator of how much sugar is in there, because sometimes they'll say 0 sugar, but like 65 grams of carbohydrate, and that basically converts into sugar, which is still going to suppress your immune system there. The deli and packaged meat, this is a big one. If you can this is the easiest shift that people can make. The colors, my mother-in-law just got over pancreatic cancer. And sometimes the people that listen to us least, if you ever just notice that they're usually our family, right? And I was talking to her doctor, and I said, well, I seem to, when I first started in practice, very few of my patients ever got cancer. Now it's like every week somebody, you hear about somebody. And I said, what do you think has caused this increased rate of pancreatic cancer? He goes, oh, there's no question whatsoever. 75% of all pancreatic cancers are directly attributable to the nitrates found in processed meat. 75%. Boom, right off the top. And I'm like, that's a huge number. Obviously, I'm a Google man. So I went and Googled it, and I started pulling up study after study after study. The nitrates in the processed meat are toxic for our body. There is no place in our body for them. And if that's one thing that you can do, like if you literally didn't hear a single word, like you shut off from this point on and everything that I say, and you make that shift, it's going to have a dramatic impact on your life. And when we were growing up, maybe we had bologna, and yeah, maybe there was some nitrates in there, but we also had a lot of other good stuff in our lives, right? But now, you start looking at the Lunchables, and you start looking at all the different foods, the nitrates are huge. They all have MSG in them and colorings there. Just having when they eat processed meat, just a 15% chance greater of having stomach cancer. All we have to do is make that slight little shift, right? Just a small little shift will have an impact there. White bread. This is a big one for you. And a lot of times, if I was to say people have to give up one thing, I could say I could give up coffee, I could give up alcohol, I could give up breathing, but to give up my bread? Are you kidding me? There's no way. Think about bread is one of the hardest things for us to give up, and it's part of our culture from manna from the heavens, right? It came down. We've been eating bread for eternity. The problem is it's not the same bread that we eat today. And so if there is really no place in your diet or your children's diet for white bread. There is no nutrient value. You're basically putting glue in there. And in fact, there was Bill Maher, he's a comedian on HBO. And he said something that I thought was really funny. He said, you know, the United States is one of those countries that's so blessed, but we don't realize that we're so blessed because, you know, we have so much food that now we're getting allergic to it, right? Like we eat so much, now we're actually allergic to the food that we eat. And so what we start to find in white bread is, you know, you start hearing about people with gluten allergies there. That's anytime that bread sticks together, there's a high concentration of gluten, which creates an inflammatory response in your body. And there's a huge correlation between gluten allergies and thyroid issues there, and other hormonal and gastrointestinal issues there. But the other thing is it's stripped of all of its fiber. It raises their blood sugar up. And in fact, they did a study where they actually took a piece of white bread and they had somebody also eat a chocolate bar, and they watched whose blood sugar actually went higher quicker. And it was the white bread blood sugar went actually higher quicker than the person that ate the Hershey candy bar. So if we're having blood sugar issues, the first thing that we can do is remove the bread from our diets there. Because they immediately turn to sugar once they hit our mouth there. Sprayed produce. And this is a big one. And this is kind of a hard one because we don't get to see it, right? Like if we lived in the valley and we saw the plane flying over spraying us, we'd be like, huh, maybe somebody's spraying our food. And so what we can do is, one of the things that I suggest is that the easiest thing you can do is just use a vegetable wash. They have, you know, there's little vegetable washes there at Trader Joe's. It's easy. So you don't have to go. The biggest excuse I hear from people, like why I don't eat healthy, is because I can't afford it. Right? I mean, because like seriously, if you went to a farmer's market every single weekend, like we would be working swing shifts at the Jack in the Box just to be able to pay for our food bill. And so what we need to do is just have some cheaper alternatives. And one of the things that we can do is actually use like a chemical, like a vegetable wash, and that gets rid of a vast majority of the toxins on our foods. And this is a real thing. They definitely cause neurologic issues. And the problem is most of these pesticides, they're designed to kill things, right? And so when we're eating something that's designed to kill things, the longer that we eat it, the more it causes our bodies to break down there. The other thing is that, you know, right now we have about 30,000 chemicals in our environment that are being used on a regular basis, and only about 1,500 have been tested. Most of the ones that have been tested, the rest were grandfathered in. And so we don't know what the long-term effects of a lot of these things are. And so, you know, until we know what the long-term effects, I would just say, let's let somebody else be the guinea pig, and let's just be the ones that live healthy to 100. So here's what I call the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. Now these are actually in your books, so you don't have to write them down if you want to, just to commit it to memory, that's great. But the Clean 15 are things, and you'll notice they have a covering around them. They have a covering around them that doesn't allow the pesticides to get into. The Dirty Dozen are the ones that have the very thin skins on them. So these are the things that you want to buy organic. These are the things that you don't have to buy organic. See, now we just cut your food bill in half because you don't have to feel guilty about buying these things organic. Like, where was avocados? Like, do you know how much more expensive an organic avocado is than just a regular avocado? Yeah. It's like twice the price, right? So there's the thing about marketing in there. So just know those things, and that's where the power's in the book. Like, the amount of money that you're going to save on your food bill just by reading that book is more than you could. It's over a lifetime. It's going to be thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars there. Margarine. This is it's not butter, just so you know. Okay. The reason why it's yellow is because they have to dye it. Because when margarine first came out, do you guys remember it was white, and nobody was buying it, and so it's only one molecule away from plastic. And so, like, literally, you have to think about, like, we demonized butter, and all of a sudden we started having margarine, which is a trans fat. It's literally like every time you put margarine, yeah, it spreads better, but it also spreads into your heart, and onto your cells better too. And so, margarine is one of the worst things that we can put in our body. It has no place. Our body doesn't know how to process it, and it's, you know, when we talk about a bad fat, this is one of the worst fats that we can have there. The manufacturers, they start with the cheapest oils like corn and cottonseed oil and canola oil, which are already rancid. I mean, like, there is nothing good that comes from margarine. So actually, if we go back to, like I said, stop listening, start listening again. Like, we can do the nitrates, and like, this is a simple shift. Like, if you don't want to do anything else, just cut out the margarine there and actually get back to real butter there, because your body knows actually how to process that organic real butter. Diet sodas and drinks. Okay, this is a huge one because a lot of times people don't realize that they're actually addicted to them. They're highly addictive. That's why they have such a powerful market there. I mean, like it's the same type of thing of, you know, like how many people do you know that now, 5 years ago, never went to Starbucks? Now they have like their breakfast, lunch, and evening Starbucks there, right? Like it's the caffeine that's in there, which dehydrates us. But when the amount of sugars in the regular sodas can directly contribute to diabetes. They double your risk of, if somebody has one soda a day, it doubles their risk of having a stroke. You know, it's not like, I just saved you money on taking an aspirin a day. Why don't you just cut out sodas and then you cut your risk of stroke significantly there. The other thing is that when we cut down to the diet sodas, we think, okay, well, it's just a diet soda, I'm not having the sugar. It's actually worse for you. I'd actually prefer that you actually had a regular soda than a diet soda because of the amount of chemicals that are in those regular sodas there. So the other thing is that they're extremely acidic. And one of the things, so what does this acid mean anything? Well, our body has to have this perfect acid-alkaline balance. Like, we need to have a 7.0, 7.3 is where our body needs to be. So if you think of a swimming pool, right? Like, have you ever had a swimming pool that, like, or like a hot tub? And you always have to go out there and check the chemistry, because if you don't, what starts to grow in the hot tub? Right, algae, right? So like when the pH is off, all this stuff starts to grow in there. Like, and then when the pH is too high, like, you know, different types of funguses and molds start to grow in there. Same thing happens with our body. When our pH is too low, our white blood cells can't travel. It actually destroys our white blood cells. Our hormones can't balance themselves out well. When it's too high, it affects us. So when somebody drinks a soda, what it does is the soda's average pH is about 5.5. It takes 32 glasses of water just to balance out our pH to get us back to where we should have been in the first place. So if you're going to drink a soda, that's fine. Why don't you just make sure you drink the 32 glasses of water afterwards to make up for the damage? All right? So this is a big thing that we can do, genetically modified foods. And somebody was asking me, they're like, so what does genetically modified mean? Well, here's the thing, is that we don't know. Really? We really don't know what's going to be happening with these genetically modified foods. They've only been out for a few years. You know, we used to think that lobotomy was a good thing. Now we realize it's a bad thing. Like, a lot of the things that we thought were good ideas, like, you know, you look at some of the toys that kids played with in the 70s, now we're like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't even like let my worst enemy play with it. That's the same thing we're looking with the foods. It used to be, you know, genetically modified corn. Now they're realizing that it's spreading throughout the world, and we're starting to see health problems that we never knew when they actually have, they compare rats that eat regular corn and genetically modified corn. The rats that eat genetically modified corn always get tumors. Not sometimes, they always get tumors. And now we're starting to genetically modify the meats that we eat and into our food supplies. And so you really have a choice there. And this is something that I encourage you as a human being to actually look into, because you have a choice of what type of foods that you eat, and you're going to be voting with your dollars. Yes?
Well, the other thing is it gets into the environment and you cannot control it.
Right, it's a Pandora's box. And I don't want to be political on it, but I'm just trying to speak to you as a human being, like in your body and your choices. Like, the choices that you make today are going to affect the rest of us for the longest time. Commercial dairy. Okay, so I actually had a discussion. Dr. Jones, who's going to be speaking tonight, we were having a discussion about milk the other day, and he said, well, you know, milk is a great food, and it is a great food. The problem is that, like, you know, most animals, in fact, all other animals besides human beings, stop drinking milk when they're infants. Like, there's no, and somebody's like, well, cats drink milk. And I'm like, no, they don't. Humans pour milk for cats to drink. There's a big difference, right? Like, you know, why do we continue to drink milk as adults? I mean, why would we have cow's milk as opposed to, like, maybe drinking cat's milk or, you know, whale's milk? It just so happens that we drink cow's milk, and it's that what we do as a country. And the challenge is that a cow has 4 stomachs. We have 1 stomach. That's why half the world's population is actually allergic to cow's milk. Like, they can't drink. That's why we have these modified type milks there. One of the people with chronic respiratory issues, congestive type issues, bowel issues there, you know, they need to maybe look at what's going on with the milk. But one of the big things that happens is that a lot of the toxins, a lot of the pesticides, actually, the bioaccumulation in milk is so significant So this is one of those ones you absolutely, if you're going to drink milk, you absolutely have to drink organic milk. There's not even a question. And if you drink milk, I suggest to you that you actually drink raw milk. That's one of the things you'd want to get from the farmer's market, because when they pasteurize it and homogenize it, what happens is it destroys all the good proteins in the milk. And so there's actually, when they pasteurize it, there's something called xanthine oxidase that's released. Xanthine oxidase is an enzyme that is actually an etching enzyme, and what it does is they found that it actually etches our blood vessels. It actually nicks at our blood vessels, and guess what our body does to repair that nick? It has to put a plaque on those nicks in our blood vessels. And so you look at the countries that have the highest milk consumption, like the United States, and you compare it to countries like Norway that have the lowest milk consumption, and some of these other countries, the rate of heart disease goes like this: higher milk, higher heart disease there. And so you'll notice the 4 basic food groups that we all grew up with, right? You know, you had to have equal parts dairy, and you had to have your grains, and you had to have your vegetables, and you had to have your meats. Well, now dairy is an option, right? Because the reason why we drank dairy was to get our calcium. Well, now we realize that we actually get our calcium from our green leafy vegetables. So you can actually eat green leafy vegetables. You know, they have what's called the food pyramid now. And the grains are a smaller percentage. All these things that we thought we had to have. So the nutrition has changed, and so we have to start looking at and changing our ideas about nutrition. Last one is our seasoned packaged foods. Like, this is basically like, enough said, right? Like, there's nothing good in there. Like where do we go from that? What does that give to us? A lot of the seasoned packaged foods, they have all the flavors, the snack check, the fishy crackers that we give our kids all the time there. Those things are all trans fats, and those things have a dramatic effect. So if we can avoid those top 10, we're going to be in a really good place. So here's the alternatives. Salad dressings, make your own. It's the easiest thing that we can do. Candy, kick the sugar habit, just say no to white powder. Deli packaged meat, you just got to go to clean sources. I mean, that's the thing. If you're going to eat meat, which is like our bodies, depending on who you talk to, our bodies are designed to do, you might want to eat clean meat. You want to try to have something that is not toxic, because the more toxic you eat, whatever you eat that's toxic, is you become toxic also. White bread, whole, sprouted, or stone ground. Yes, ma'am.
Can you go back to what's a clean source? What's a clean meat then for a lunch product?
Okay, so clean meat, they actually have, there's a Apple Farm, I think it's Applewood now.
I think it's called Applewood.
I think it's called Applewood. Like, so that one has like no nitrates in there. It's a organic one. We just actually we maybe put a little bit extra time into our food, but like my wife will get our chicken breasts, and when we cook up we have chicken for dinner one night, we'll actually cook 4 extra chicken breasts for the week, and so we'll have chicken in our sandwiches there. We'll have chicken, organic chicken breasts on our salads there. And so it's about, basically when it's in a package, it makes it a lot more difficult. So even with like some ground beef, like at Trader Joe's, they have organic beef, which is good, and then they have organic grass-fed beef, which is best. And so really, it's like good is out of the package, and have organic, and so that's really what we want to look at as organic, meaning that it's not exposed to pesticides. And then, the best would be organic grass-fed. And one of the problems why I say grass-fed is so important is that when, for our bodies to function, there has to be a ratio of omega-3s, which have you guys ever heard of omega-3s? So they're great anti-inflammatories, right? They look at people that take omega-3s, their heart disease risk goes down, their brain function goes up, they prevent Alzheimer's there. Sorry, I have 2 more minutes, but I'll let you go. When I'm the speaker, I have the power. It's great. But one of the things that happens is that ratio is so incredibly important. But what we find is in things like grains, they have a high omega-6 ratio. So our ratio is supposed to be like a 1 to 1, 1 to 2. But right now, like the average American is 1 to about 25 to 27. So there's 1 omega-3 to 25 to 27 omega-6s in their body. At 29. They find that people that have a ratio of 1 to 29, they have depression. When people have a ratio of 1 to 10, they have chronic inflammation, which causes the narrowing of their blood vessels in their arteries there. So when we look at, so if we're eating a lot of grains, all of a sudden our ratios are going to be imbalanced. But let's say we have a cow, and what do they feed cows? like grain-fed beef, like, good old Midwest grain-fed beef. So those cows become inflamed. When they become inflamed, it weakens their immune system, so they have to give them all the antibiotics and the shots and all these different things to keep them from being sick. And so all of a sudden we have this inflamed meat and with all the medications in there trying to be able to keep that meat alive till it can get to market. And that's one of the things when I talk about like what we call clean meat. So just going to grass-fed is really a much better alternative there. Sprayed produce, just remember, clean 15 dirty dozen. Margarine, butter, olive oil, you can actually go for organic butter. Diet sodas, say no. But water, like pretty much you can't go wrong with water. It's a pretty good idea. If you like to go actually be proactive, then just put some lemon in it, maybe even something called stevia. You can put some drops if you like to taste something sweet. So you can actually have lemonade just by putting lemon and stevia in there. GMO foods, just go all natural. Like you have nothing to lose by going all natural. You have everything to lose by going all GMO. Commercial dairy products, try to go organic and raw. And seasoned packaged foods, organic, natural, are alternatives. There was one other thing that I was going to say. So in your books, and just to give you a guide through your books, okay, this is what's called a cellular healing diet. It's our cellular healing lifestyle, because when your cells are healthy, how healthy are you?
Good.
Right. So we're talking about trying to get your cells healthy and give them everything that you need. That way you are going to be healthy. And so this is the diet's broken into two ways of living. So the first one is what we call the core plan. And that's just the basic plan. That's just good common sense nutrition for families and healthy living for families and children there. The second one is what we call the advanced plan. And this is one where people are having hormonal issues. They're having health issues. They're having weight loss issues, weight loss resistance type issues. Like anytime somebody has a health issue and they want health restoration, this is where we need to stay. And so then the question is that, like, how long do we stay on this side? Well, we stay on this side until we have resolution of that issue. And then we move back over to the core plan there. And there's so much information on that. So like usually it's a 3 to 4 hour course that I go through on this. And so I just want to make sure that you guys have an understanding. You have the resources there. You have me as a resource. You have Dr. Jones as a resource. Just email us, call us there. But really the three things that I'll talk about are proteins, fats, and sugars. Like, let's just that's the three things that I want you to get from today is just to know that we stay away from our sugars and carbohydrates. If we just did that, we're going to have a dramatic impact on our health and on our weight. If we change our proteins to have healthy grass-fed proteins, and we don't need to have like big, huge, it's not we're talking about the Atkins diet, right? It's not like having like a T-bone steak for breakfast and then like a big Fred Flintstone steak that, or the big old ribeye for lunch. No, it's about being moderate and removing bad fats and just replacing them with good fats. I'm not saying that you go eat, drink fat. I'm saying that we already are having fats. Let's just get rid of the bad ones and give us the good ones there. And so this is the book right here. Really the core plan right here. Hopefully it's going to pop into place. It's going to focus on the good fats, the good proteins, and the good carbohydrates there. The advanced plan, you're going to see it'll talk about increasing our fat level to a higher than normal level, okay? And it's going to talk about like coconut oils, like as a good source of fat. Like Carol and I were just talking about this, that coconut oil is an amazing fat. It's actually the same, normal fats are 9 calories per gram. Coconut oil is 8 calories per gram. And it's a medium chain fatty acid, just like mother's milk. And I actually had a discussion with sometimes I get into little heated discussions, and I was on a panel once with this doctor, and he said there is no fats that somebody should have, and I said, really? He goes, absolutely none. And I'm like, what about mother's milk? He's like, okay. There are things that our body needs there. So proteins, have moderate proteins, and just really the big thing is for health restoration. During this time when somebody has an issue, we have to completely eliminate grains. Completely eliminate grains, sugars, and really to a point of almost eliminating all fruits except for berries. And it seems like radical, but radical is like having to deal with these health issues and thinking that it's normal. Like if you have the power to be able to make those changes. So this was the last thing I put together, my Dr. Osborne's top 10 rules of thumb. You ready? Rule number 1, if your food has a shelf life as long as a can of paint, don't eat it, So, I mean, like if it's there and you put it in your earthquake preparedness kit and it's been there for 15 years and it still looks the same, don't eat it there. A prepackaged, don't eat it. If you can't pronounce the ingredients, don't eat it. If your food has dye added to it to make it actually look more appetizing, like if they actually have to make it look good to you, I wouldn't eat it. If your food is you're about to consume has preservatives in it, I didn't make it, they probably never intended it to be preserved anyways. Like your meat, if you're having to preserve your meat so that it doesn't go rotten on you, it probably wasn't intended for you to keep it long enough to not go rotten. Like it's supposed to be consumed right away there. Same thing with like your milk. Like if have you ever had like an apple that's an organic apple and had it set next to it like one that's like has the wax on the outside, like that waxy one will sit there for like 3 weeks. The organic apple in 3 days or 4 days is like brown. And so here's the next one. If you're drinking dissolve a nail or the corrosion off your car battery, aka soda, probably shouldn't drink it. If your food has a neurotoxin flavor, like if they have to flavor it with a neurotoxin, probably shouldn't eat it there. Your food has an ingredient in all caps. And so like when they're saying no trans fats, like it says no trans fats, you know that they're probably lying to you, right? So look at the serving size in the back. If you see like a hydrogenated anything, you know that serving size is gonna, they had to play some like games with the serving size there. And if your food has an ingredient with 92 known side effects, like aspartame, probably shouldn't eat it. How about this one? If your food doesn't come from the earth or the heavens, but it was made by man in a laboratory, like there's a difference between vitamin C that you get in a pill and vitamin C that you actually get in an orange, right? Like the bioavailability is totally different there. I wouldn't eat it there. And so really, this is a bittersweet time of year. I invite you guys to, if you want to continue, like have any questions. I have a class coming up on, bittersweet, like how to stay healthy for the holidays. I invite you. It's free for you guys. It's just one of my favorite things to do. I have some flyers for that. But really, if you have any questions, just go to drtjosborne.com. It's really easy. Carolyn's going to also be emailing you a link to the video, and she's going to be emailing you what I call my TFM challenge, which is a Total Food Makeover Challenge. And we put this together because the worst thing that we can do is sit here today and then walk out of here and go, oh, Dr. Osborne, who's a really great speaker. Like, I mean, hopefully you're going to say that, but he's a great speaker. Remember Demosthenes and Cicero, right? Like they were having these great debates, and they said that Cicero was this great orator, and they said we walked out of here, and I learned a lot from him. But when Cicero got up and spoke, they got up and said, let's march. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to take an action, right? And so whenever you're in a meeting, if you don't take an action after that meeting, you just wasted your time. And so what this is a 30-day challenge. And it's not that you're challenging me because I know this information. It's you're challenging yourself. If we can improve, 1% every day, and 100 days, we've had 100% improvement. So this is kind of your plan. If you can just work through this over the next 30 days, and just take these little changes, you're going to find a major transformation in your life and in your health there. And you're also going to have more questions too. So, and that's why. I put a lot of stuff on our Facebook, Discover Chiro, like us, and then we'll be getting updated stuff. So I thank you for your time, blessings, and if you want to give me the nutritional questionnaires, if you put your email on there, I will look at them over and we'll stay in contact and talk about them too. So have a great day. Yes.
Thank you. This is what Carolyn's going to send us this slideshow?
She's going to send you this right here.
Just that?
And then she'll also send you the video right here too.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
what you actually spoke.
Yeah.
Well, and that'll have this.
I'm sure I can arrange it. That I
Because
can
that
give her.
would be wonderful for that.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
So we have to do it right now.
What's that?
This one, the question.
Well, if you want me to review it with you or to talk to you about it, feel free to just put your name on it and email it, and that way I can give you a contact you there.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay, sure.
My pleasure.
Thank you.